regret this is an hour later, but we're going to start something new for the spring on the weekends. Our spring schedule on weekends for tea time will be at 4 so that you girls and boys can go out and play. And we will be doing 2 weeks of children's storytelling time during this time. Tomorrow, this weekend is Holy Easter in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and tomorrow is Easter Sunday. And tomorrow I will explain some of the differences and show you some things. I have here this Russian toy. It's a toy that you can take it apart. You can hide things in it. One of the great things of Orthodox Easter is the egg, and I will explain that tomorrow. But it's a time of fun surprises. In the West, we have the nest with the rabbit and the eggs, as I explained to you before. In the East, it's different, and I will be telling you about that. It's more connected with the very ancient church in Byzantium, even before the West. And I will tomorrow explain a few things, since it is Easter Sunday. But the most important holy feast and experience, I think, in the Orthodox Church is tonight. It's the Easter Vigil that goes all night. And there's a vigil with the casket. I think I've explained it to you, but there's a vigil. A prayer vigil, where you come and pray, and there are chants, music, and prayers. And then at midnight, the priest goes out the door. We walk around the church, all the way around, with candles lit, candlelight procession, and then there's what's called the Great Knock. There's a big bang on the door. And you'll open the door, all the lights are on, all the candles are lit, and the casket that was there before is gone. And it's a celebration of Christ's resurrection. In the Anglican church that I went to with my daughter Rachel, part of the Easter Vigil was like that. Even though it was Western, it had a lot of the same elements. And at midnight, there was a huge painting that was uncovered of Christ rising from the dead. All the lights came on, and then everybody rang bells. It was a combined DC churches, Church of the Resurrection, Church Advent, and Ascension. And it was an amazing experience. And I've also experienced it in the Eastern Orthodox Church. And I'll explain that more to you tomorrow. But today, it's fun. This is Children's Storytime Hour, and today's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to show you some fun things that you can do for others after we finish our story. But I want to tell you what story I'm going to start reading. We'll be reading it now for 5 days. And as I said earlier, only Saturday, Sunday, and Monday will be at 4 for tea, so you can be outside and do things and then get recovered on Monday. And then we go back to 3 the rest of the week until next weekend. That will be our new spring schedule. The fireside readings will remain the same in the evening at 7. So I was privileged to inherit a lot of wonderful books that were published before the 1920s. This one was given as a Christmas gift to someone I don't know. I think there was a family that lived next door who had a grown son, and he gave my folks, when I was adopted, he gave my folks all of his books. And there's one that I noticed looking this up to see when it was written. The original, not this one, this was published in 1920. It was 50 cents post-paid for any one of these. It's called the Young People's Classics, and it could be Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Andersen's Fairy Tale, Gulliver's Travels, just Robin Hood, all of them. It was published in Philadelphia. The original Little Lame Prince was written in 1875, as was Black Beauty. I don't know if any of you know about Black Beauty, but it was published in 1877, 2 years after this one. And I actually have an original copy of it from, I believe, at least if it's a reproduction, it has the same cover as the 1877 one. So we'll do that later. And there was a movie with Elizabeth Taylor called Black Beauty, which you might remember or might want to see. It's a fun movie. Anyway, we're going to be reading The Little Lame Prince. This was a gift from someone I do not know. I think it was maybe the neighbor. It was to Robert Burton Reynolds, Christmas 1919, from Marion and Arthur Clifton, whoever they were. And again, it's so old, there's beautiful calligraphy in the front of the book. I wish we wrote like that now. I keep trying, but I can't. It's better than a computer. So when I get done, I'm going to read a chapter today, and we'll see how it goes. But we will do it for 5 days, then we'll go back to curating until the weekend, and then back. So I'm going to, this one's called The Little Lame Prince and His Traveling Cloak. This is the cover. You can see it. I hope you can see it. So, we'll start reading. The Little Lame Prince and His Traveling Cloak. That music in the background is to celebrate Orthodox Easter, which is tomorrow. The Little Lame Prince and His Traveling Cloak, a parable for old and young, by Miss Mullock. With 4 full-page colored plates and numerous illustrations, published by David McKay in Philadelphia. The Little Lame Prince. Yes, he was the most beautiful prince that ever was born. Of course, being a prince, people said this, but it was true besides. When he looked at the candle, his eyes had an expression of earnest inquiry, quite startling in a newborn baby. His nose, that was not much of it certainly, but was there, seemed an aquiline shape, a beautiful shape. His complexion was a charming, healthy purple. He was round and fat, straight-limbed and long. In fact, a splendid baby, and everyone was exceedingly proud of him, especially his father and mother, the Queen and King of Normansland, who had waited for him during their happy reign of 10 years, now made happier than ever to themselves and their subjects by the appearance of a son and heir. The only person who was not quite happy was the king's brother, the heir presumptive, who would have been king one day had the baby not been born. But as His Majesty was very kind to the brother, and even rather sorry for him, insomuch that at the Queen's request, he gave him a dukedom almost as big as a country. The Crown Prince, as he was called, tried to seem pleased also, and let us hope he succeeded. The little prince's christening was to be a grand affair. Tomorrow, if I can find it, I will show you a christening dress, boys and girls. When we get done, I'm going to show you some fun things that we could do for others and talk a little bit about the Little Lame Prince. But right now, let's get back to the story. The prince's christening was to be a grand affair. According to the custom of the country, there were chosen for him 24 godfathers and godmothers, who each had to give him a name and promised to do their utmost for him. When he came of age, he himself had to choose the name and the godfather or godmother that he liked best for the rest of his days. That's very different from the way we do things in our time. Meantime, all was rejoicing. Subscriptions were made among the rich to give pleasure to the poor, dinners in town halls for the working men, tea parties in the streets for their wives, and milk and bun feasts for the children in the schoolrooms. For Normansland, though I cannot point it out in any map or read it in any history, was, I believe, much like our own in many another country. As for the palace, which was not different from other places, it was clean, turned out of the windows, as people would say. I mean, sparkly and clean, we would say, with preparations going on. The only quiet place in it was the room which Though the prince was 6 weeks old, his mother, the queen, had never quitted. She stayed there. Nobody said she was ill, however. It would have been so inconvenient, as she said nothing about it herself, but lay pale and placid, giving no trouble to anyone. Nobody thought much about her. She was never seen. All the world was absorbed, but because all the world was absorbed in admiring the baby. The christening day came at last, and it was as lovely as the prince himself. All the people in the palace were lovely too, or thought themselves so, in the elegant new clothes which the queen, who thought of everybody, had taken care to give them, from the ladies-in-waiting down to the poor little kitchen maid, who looked at herself in her pink cotton gown and thought that there never was such a pretty girl as she. By 6 in the morning, all the royal household had dressed itself in its very best. And then the little prince was dressed in his best, his magnificent christening robe, which proceeding his royal highness did not like at all, but kicked and screamed like any common baby. When he had a little calmed down, they carried him to be looked at by the queen, his mother, who, though her royal robes had been brought and laid upon the bed, was, as everybody well knew, she was quite unable to rise and put them on. She admired her baby very much, kissed and blessed him, and lay looking at him, as she did for hours sometimes. When he was placed beside her fast asleep, then she gave him up with a gentle smile, and saying she hoped he would be very good, but it would be a very nice christening, and that all the guests would enjoy themselves. She then turned peacefully over in her bed, saying nothing more to anyone. She was a very uncomplaining person, the queen, and her name was Dolores. Everything went on exactly as if she had been present. All, even the king himself, had grown used to her absence, for she was not strong, and for years she had not joined in the gaieties. She always did her royal duties, but as to pleasures, they could go on quite well without her, or so it seemed so. The company arrived, the great noble persons in this and neighboring countries, also the 24 godfathers and godmothers who had been chosen with care, as the people who would be most useful to His Royal Highness should he ever want friends, which did not seem likely. What such want could possibly happen to the heir of the powerful monarch of no man's land? They came walking 2 by 2, with their coronets on their heads, being dukes and duchesses, princes and princesses, or the like. They all kissed the child and pronounced the name which each had given him. Then the 24 names were shouted out with great energy by 6 heralds, one after the other, and afterward written down to be preserved in the state records. In readiness for the next time, to be preserved in the state records in readiness for the next time that they were wanted, which would be either on His Royal Highness's coronation or his funeral. Soon the ceremony was over and everybody satisfied, except perhaps the little prince himself, who moaned faintly under his christening robes, which nearly smothered him. In truth, though very few knew, the prince, in coming to the chapel, had met with a slight disaster. His nurse, not his ordinary one, but the state nursemaid, an elegant and fashionable young lady of rank, whose duty it was to carry him to and from the chapel, had been so occupied in arranging her train that went behind her dress, one hand, while she held the baby with the other, that she stumbled and let him fall just at the foot of the marble staircase. To be sure, she contrived to pick him up again the next minute, and the accident was so slight it seemed hardly worth speaking of. Consequently, nobody did speak of it. The baby had turned pale, but did not cry, so no person a step or two behind could discover anything wrong. Afterward, even if he had moaned, the silver trumpets were loud enough to drown his voice. It would have been a pity to let anything trouble such a day of felicity and joy. So after a minute's pause, the procession had moved on. Such a procession. Heralds in blue and silver, pages in crimson and gold, and a troop of little girls in dazzling white carrying baskets of flowers, which they strewed all the way before the nurse and the child. Finally, the 24 godfathers and godmothers, as proud as possible and so splendid to look at that they would have quite extinguished their small godson, merely a heap of lace and muslin with a baby face inside, had it not been for a canopy of white satin and ostrich feathers which was held over him wherever he was carried. That's quite a scene. I'll show you some peacock feathers tomorrow. Ostrich feathers are much fluffier. I don't have any. But if you can imagine, he was all surrounded by this white diaphanous christening dress, and then there were feathers and everything hiding him from the crowd. It's just like fairyland, whispered the eldest little girl to the next eldest. Hello, Punky, you want to hear it? Punky's joining us. I think the only thing the prince wants now is a fairy godmother. Does he? Said a shrill but soft and not unpleasant voice behind. And there was seen among the group of children somebody, not a child, yet no bigger than a child, somebody who nobody had seen before and who certainly had not been invited, for she had no christening clothes on. She was a little old woman dressed all in gray gown, gray hooded cloak, of a material excessively fine, and a tint that seemed perpetually changing like the gray of an evening sky. Her hair was gray, and her eyes also. Even her complexion had soft gray shadow over it. But there was nothing unpleasantly old about her, and her smile was as sweet and childlike as the prince's own, which stole over his pale little face with the instant she came near enough to touch him. Take care, don't let the baby fall again. Grand young lady nurse started, flushing angrily. Who spoke to me? How did anybody know? I mean, what business has anybody? Then frightened, but still speaking in a much sharper tone than I hope young ladies of rank are in the habit of speaking. Old woman, you'll be kind enough not to say the baby, but the prince. Keep away. His Royal Highness is just going to sleep. Nevertheless, I must kiss him. I am his godmother. You? Cried the elegant lady nurse. You? Replied all the gentlemen, repeated the gentlemen and ladies in waiting. You? Echoed the heralds and pages. And they began to blow the silver trumpets in order to stop all further conversation. The prince's procession formed itself for returning, the king and his train having already moved off toward the palace. But on the topmost step of the marble stairs stood right in front of all the little old woman clothed in gray. She stretched herself on tiptoe by the help of her stick and gave the little prince 3 kisses. This is intolerable, cried the young lady nurse, wiping the kisses off rapidly with her lace handkerchief. Such an insult to his royal prince. Take yourself out of the way, old woman, or the king will be informed immediately. The king knows nothing of me, more's the pity, replied the old woman, with an indifferent air, as she thought the loss was more on his majesty's side than hers. My friend in the palace is the king's wife. Kings have not wives, but queens, said the lady nurse with a contemptuous air. You are right, replied the old woman. Nevertheless, I know Her Majesty well, and I love her and her child. And since you dropped him on the marble stairs," this she said in a mysterious whisper which made the young lady tremble in spite of her anger. I didn't whisper. "I chose to take him for my own and be his godmother, ready to help him whenever he wants me." "You help him?" cried all the group, breaking into shouts of laughter. "Ha!" To which the little old woman paid not the slightest attention. Her soft gray eyes were fixed on the prince, who seemed to answer to the look, smiling again and again in the causeless, aimless fashion that babies do smile. They just immediately respond when you look in a baby's face. It's so sweet. That's not part of the story. "His Majesty must hear of this," said a gentleman in waiting. "His Majesty will hear quite enough news in a minute or two," said the old woman sadly. And again, stretching up to the little prince, she kissed him on the forehead solemnly. "Be called by a new name which nobody has ever thought of. Be Prince Dolor, in memory of your mother Dolores." In memory of? Everybody started at the ominous phrase, and also at the most terrible breach of etiquette which the old woman had committed. In no man's land, neither the king nor the queen was supposed to have any Christian name at all. They dropped it on their coronation day, and it was never mentioned again until it was engraved on their coffins when they died. "Old woman, you are exceedingly ill-bred," cried the eldest lady in waiting, much horrified. "How you could know the fact passes my comprehension. But even if you did know it, how dared you presume to hint that Her Most Gracious Majesty is called Dolores?" "Was called Dolores," said the old woman with a tender solemnity. The first gentleman, called Goldstick in waiting, raised it to strike her. All the reps stretched out their hands to seize her. The gray mantle melted from between their fingers like air. And there, before anybody had time to do anything more, there came a heavy, muffled, startling sound. The great bell of the palace, the bell which was only heard on the death of someone of the royal family, and for as many times as he or she was years old, began to toll. They listened, mute and horror-stricken. Someone counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9 and 20, just the Queen's age. It was indeed the Queen. Her Majesty was dead. In the midst of the festivities, she had slipped away out of her new happiness and her old sufferings, but not few nor small. Sending away all her women to see the grand sight, at least they said afterwards in excuse that she had done so. It was very likely her to do it, as she had turned with her face to the window, whence one could just see the tops of the distant mountains, the beautiful mountains as they were called, where she was born. So gazing, she had quietly died. When the little prince was carried back to his mother's room, there was no mother to kiss him. And though he did not know it, there would be for him no mother's kiss anymore. As for his godmother, the little old woman in gray, who called herself so, whether she melted into the air like her gown when they touched it, or whether she flew out of the chapel window or slipped through the doorway among the bewildered crowd, nobody knew. Nobody ever thought about her. Only the nurse, the ordinary, homely one, coming out of the prince's nursery in the middle of the night in search of a cordial to quiet his continual moans. Sitting in the doorway, something she would have thought a mere shadow, had she not seen shining out of it 2 eyes, gray, soft, and sweet. She put her hand before her own, screaming loudly. When she took them away, the old woman was gone. Tomorrow we'll read chapter 2. Before I show you some fun things that you can do for others, I want to tell you a story. I didn't know this when I began reading it, but this story is a bit like my own childhood, because my mother was forced to give me away. I was never kissed by my mother that I know of. I may have been kissed once. And I was put in an orphanage and locked in a crib until my wonderful adoptive parents came when I was over 2 years old. Anyway, I'm reading The Little Lame Prince because in the day this was written, people with disabilities were dismissed or hidden. And we live in a better day today, and we live in a time when there are chances for people with disabilities to be able to live almost normal lives and be able to accomplish many things. I have a collection of walking sticks. Tomorrow I'm going to show you one of the men described in here, the gold stick man, because I have an actual gold walking stick from the 1870s. But today I'm going to show you this. This is a lot of fun, children. This is a walking stick made out of spools. And some of them even have thread on them. Some of them don't. They're painted. But the green, red, the orange, and yellow, and the blue are all real threads. And then they've been lacquered. And this has all been put together and then made into a stick. This is really fun, walking sticks. So this is a fun thing. Nobody has spools anymore, but if you do, it might be fun to try making something like this. So now, I'm going to tell you also, the reason I bring this up, I've been thinking about us being locked up in a place, and a place can get really claustrophobic. And for you parents who have children, you might want to do this. I decided the other night that there are some friends of ours who, several cases where the family has broken, the father and mother have separated and there's a young child, or there may be someone who's a widow with a young child, a newly widowed, maybe from the coronavirus. I'd like for you, each one of your families, to think of someone that you might think of that might be in that estate. And I have some things to show you what you can do for them. It would be a really wonderful thing. But before we do that, we're going to do something fun. I'm going to eat an Easter egg Oreo. I thought you all should know that there is such a thing. I just discovered them. And I got these at Walgreens. Let me get it open. Here we go. Now I'll get it open in a minute. Punky, you can chew it. Here, chew it. Punky's opening it for me. Yeah, you might be able to do it actually. I'll find something and open them because I want you to see them. In the meantime, I want to tell you some wonderful things that you can do for others. I decided that I would look around my house and find some children's books that I'd gotten to give to others that I haven't given. And I decided that maybe there could be some things that we could give people in need while we're all locked up in our homes. And so I had to go to the drugstore to get get a prescription. And there was a sale on Easter things. And Walgreens has a huge sale. It's 50% off, and if you get 5 things, if you get 5 pieces, the 5th one is free. So you pay for 4 and the 5th one is free. So I'll show you what I found, and they're really a lot of fun. And I think it might be something that maybe you could get your parents to go out and maybe try to see if there's any left, or just find things around the house and make a nice package, let it sit for a day or 2 so there's no danger of coronavirus. But like one of the things they had, I've never seen these, they're just so cool. They're called 12 cascarons, and they're silly rabbit confetti eggs. They're eggs that are filled with confetti. You can take children outside and throw them around. And I got a set of these for my adult children who are trapped in their apartment in Baltimore to go out and play in the backyard or somewhere where it goes on the grass. The other thing I've never seen before, and it sounds gross, but it's kind of cool, is edible grass. This is blueberry grass. It's edible grass. So maybe your folks can find this. This is hilarious. I've never seen anything like it. This is what would be in the Easter basket if we had been able to have them. Then I found this. There are some toys and things that were 50% off, and then the fifth one free if you buy 4. And this is called Underwater. There are a bunch of underwater adventure things which are great for kids that aren't just Easter. This is slime. And this is slime, and it's like silly putty, and you can do all kinds of things with it. It's kind of a green gold. There are different flavors, or not flavors, but there are different types. I got the green gold ones. Then there's great things to do in the bubble bath. Most of these are for 3+, but we're all about 3 right now after being in the house for so long. Maybe you can get one of these for your mom or dad. You can ask them to get one for them. This is a bubble machine. You put it in the tub. It's called Submarine Bubble Machine. There's solution and the bubbles. That's really fun. It's made by Walgreens. Walgreens has all these underwater adventures, and I have a young nephew, and I just thought these would be really fun. This would be fun for everybody. You can put these in the bath. This is a shark figure set. Don't let anybody choke on it, but other than that, I don't think anybody will. They'll probably choke when they find it as a surprise. And then this I thought was very cool, because I have several families whose kids just love sea animals, and there are lots of stories. I found this. This is going to one of my little friends and their family, the whale and one of these. Then, of course, it's never last or least, there are mini Cadbury eggs. Now, I was at a wedding where the mini Cadbury eggs came from England, and they taste even better, but these are delicious. They're made here, but they're English, and they're very good. So help yourself and have some M&Ms too. So have some post-Easter treats, just to treat yourself. Then I found this, and there's another one. I don't know where the other one went. Anyway, there's one that looks like a chick, but this is just hilarious. If you shake this the right way, it lights up. And it's called Sun Puffer Animal. Bring on the sun. Oh yeah, it has to have sunlight, then it blinks. There's only one of these, or I would have gotten one for myself. Then there's something else that's it's still blinking. There's something else that's really fun. These are called Mega Grow eggs. And you submerge the egg in a container of water. In 12 to 24 hours, the eggshell will break and a sea creature will begin to hatch. Always make sure the egg is completely submerged. Leave the sea creature in the water and it will grow to full size. After a few days, the sea creature will gradually strike back to the original size when it's removed from the water. So you have to leave it in the water. This would be a lot of fun while you're waiting in your house. Let's see, is there anything else? These are also wonderful. These are German. They're Kinder eggs. They're sweet cream topped with cocoa wafer bits. Kinder Joy. And this is really great. If there's a family of 4, you can get this. It'd just be a nice treat. So one egg is 110 calories, so just remember that, and it has sugar. Then there are these magic wands, which are a lot of fun. Glitter wands. It's called Happy Go Fluffy. So there are a lot of things that adults and children can play with, and I'm going to open the Oreos, if it kills me, and show you. I've never seen these before, and I'm still a child at heart, but let's see if I can find something to open it. Hang on 1 second and I will be back. Oh, and I forgot to show you two things that are really good lessons. One is a shark bank. There's where you put the money in. And then, these are the best. These are Easter Jelly Bellies. And who doesn't like Jelly Bellies? Hold on 1 second. I'm not leaving. I'm going to get these open if it kills me. See what I can do here. Hang on 1 second. Well, guess what? My teeth are not sharp enough, and wait a minute, maybe I can do this. This is an interesting thing, since it's Easter. I'd like to show this to you, and then I'll say goodbye. This is from Israel, and it's a Torah painter. When in the yeshiva where young boys read the Torah and stand and repeat it, memorize it, and write it. This is a Torah pointer. Oops, sorry. This is handmade in Israel, and when you read a line, you go like this. It helps them to focus on the exact word of each line. That's a Torah pointer. I'm going to see if it's sharp enough. It might just... God's word finally busted open. Oreo knows how to package their cookies so they don't get stale, and nobody can get in them to do anything that I can do. All right, I found one. Here we go. Funky, you didn't help me much. They have different patterns, and they are all the same color, and they're in the shape of an egg. So I'll show you. These are really fun. I've never seen them before, and if you can find a Walgreens or somewhere, you can find these, I'm sure, because there's plenty of Easter stuff around. A lot hasn't been sold. This has Cheerios on it. Oops. There's Cheerios. And this has a funny rabbit. So there you are. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 2, and I will show you a gold stick and a christening gown. So I want to thank you all for, get back. I want to thank you all for coming, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Don't forget tonight, chapter 9 of the horse and his boy, and I will see you then. Have a good evening. Bye.